Good morning and good evening. Thank you for joining us at the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum's fourth annual summit, Strengthening Resilience, Expanding Prosperity. Please welcome the President and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, Dr. Mukesh Aghi.
A very good morning to everyone joining us from the US, and a very good evening to our friends in India. It gives me a great joy to open the fourth annual summit of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. At USISPF, we aim to optimize the dynamic partnership of the relationship between two great democracies and the symbolism of hope that they give to democracy around the world. As we look to the future of this strategic partnership, we see it growing stronger every day, as evinced by the recently concluded bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden, along with strengthening of the multilateralism exhibited in the recently concluded Quad Summit. This mini milestone of our 4-year anniversary is symbolic for several reasons. Just like a resurgent India post-independence, we started off with humble beginnings, and within this short period, we have grown from strength to strength and espouse resilience through challenging times. This experience is fitting for this year's theme, Strengthening Resilience, Expanding Opportunities. Over the past 2 years, we have seen our two countries suffer tremendous loss, hardship, and struggles during this pandemic. But even as the people of our two great democracies suffered from this virus, it was the same people of those two nations that reminded us what coming together to demonstrate resilience looks like. And having just witnessed the Quad Summit up close, we have witnessed not just resilience, but a growing sense of optimism and prosperity. As our nations, along with Australia and Japan, seek to come together to find pressing solutions such as vaccine diplomacy and vaccine rollout to tackle the pandemic, critical technologies to boost digital infrastructure, STEM scholarship for bright young minds, and climate actions to solve ever-pressing problem of climate change. It is often through adversity that we're able to find our strength and work towards mitigating problems while preventing new ones from arising. This summit brings together the best minds from the private sector and public sector world who will address you all over the next few days as we work together to find solution to biggest challenges facing us this decade. So thank you all for being here. And on behalf of John, myself, and everyone at USISPF, welcome to the fourth USISPF Leadership Summit. John, over to you. Thank you.
Mukesh, I want to thank you very much, and it's an honor to open this with the State of the Union address. So, Mukesh, I want to thank you very, very much for the opportunity to share the State of the Union with our membership and many of the other people joining us from around the world. 5 years ago, we outlined a vision that I think most people thought was too bold. We said the most strategic relationship in the world between any two countries should be between the US and India, that it should be a relationship not just based upon business or other activities, but one that could affect the lives of every citizen. We said, how do we think what is possible and dream what could occur where two countries work together in a way that's never been done before, starting with business, but also extending that throughout government, state, and local, national basis, and bringing in the startup engine for many of the innovation. We said we think we can change society between our countries and do this in a way that's never been done by business groups or governments or citizens working together. Perhaps it was a dream that was a little bit ambitious or too far, but I think we've seen the challenging events, Mukesh, that you referred to of the last year show what is capable when we dream and we have a vision on how we can work together. I think if you really look at it, my parents were doctors. They taught me to deal with the world the way it is, not the way we wish it was. And while we would have all done anything to avoid the events of the last year, it is how you deal with these challenges that really determine who you are as leaders and how your organization responds and to the benefits we bring to society. I think all of us recognize how the US and India, especially the business communities, came together to work with government in a way that's never been done before. And Mukesh, what you and the team did, and so many of our participants did, from FedEx to Deloitte to Tata, bringing this together to bring it to life. Much like India helped us as a country, we had our issues with COVID by giving us the medicines and the other areas that we needed. The US and India business community rallied together and literally focused on how do we change society for the impact across all 29 states in India and for the lives of almost everyone in India and the US. The example of 30,000 oxygen concentrators, how $20 million was raised very, very quickly, how the ability of government and defense groups worked together to move the oxygen and to move the major vaccines was something I don't think ever's been done before. And if you look at how we dream together with American business and India business, I think it's something that everybody in this virtual room should feel proud of. And to realize that you build these relationships during the tough times. You found that in terms of Prime Minister Modi's comments to President Biden about how much India appreciated how we were there in this partnership and how we in the US appreciated how India was there for us. You build the trust during the tough times. Now, let me take a step back. You look at the currency of USISPF. It's purely based upon our track record, the relationships we form, and how we build that trust for the future. And during this last year, moving past the examples of how we responded to the pandemic, the USISPF had literally expanded its membership, Mukesh, to over 314 different members. That's the largest the organization has ever been. And the number of events was over 104 events, most of them virtual, 99 virtual, and only 5 in person. You articulated earlier about the activities of the last week and a half in terms of the US and India working together, especially at the government level. And I can't think of a better time to be having this session. The bilateral meetings between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi were extremely effective. The Quad meetings with India, Australia, Japan, and the US occurring. The UN General Assembly addresses, the vaccine diplomacy, and the relief efforts, and then the defense discussions. You suddenly see why the dream or the vision that many of us thought might be a stretch too far is actually occurring. Many people ask why I'm the biggest bull, biggest optimist on India. It's because our countries, I believe, were destined to work together very uniquely, not just because of the democracy, but because of the leaders. Prime Minister Modi, I'm a huge believer in his vision of a digital India and how that can change the lives of not only people in that country, but by working together, it can change the lives of society in both of our countries. Innovation is an example that when we first started with US, we viewed it more of as a business opportunity. We now see we can innovate together at a speed that others have not been able to do. A digital India built around built in India, manufacturing in India, a startup India, ease of doing business. And I'm a huge believer in tying results back to the actual accomplishments so we can grasp how far we came. Unicorns, in other words, companies valued at over $1 billion, are an indication of future job creation. And whether it's in the US or in India, you've seen the unicorn engine really kick into high gear over the last 5 years. Using India as an example, 2018, there were 8 unicorns new in India. 2019, 9. 2020, 11. And this year, we're already over 30. So when you put in plans and programs to make it work, it takes 3 to 5 years to implement them. But you're beginning to see more unicorns in this year than in all the prior years combined. It is that type of opportunity that gives me the confidence for the future. And I think we're just getting started, Mukesh, in terms of what's possible. I think using the baseball analogy, and I've tried to do it with cricket's analogy, but in baseball, we're in the very early innings of what we can do together. I need to understand the game of cricket better so that I can do that in cricket terms for my colleagues in India. But I think we're just beginning to dream what we can do for the future. I think we can dream bigger. I think we can accomplish more. The activities of this last year, which candidly very few business organizations would have even tried to have done, have worked out better than I think we could have all imagined. And we came together during a time of crisis to build trust among our organizations. I'm going to challenge us to dream even bigger, however, and not only have the courage to change, but the courage to win together. I want to thank you, Mukesh, for what you've done, Gaurav, for what you've done, Nivi, and the entire USISPF team. You haven't seen anything yet in terms of what we can accomplish together, and I think this last year has shown that in every way imaginable. Mukesh, back to you.
Leadership and your remarks and your commitment, especially between India and the US itself. So, Malaki, you want to announce the next speaker?
Hello, I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Ajay Singh, and it is my great privilege and honor to introduce Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia, the Union Minister for Civil Aviation. Mr. Scindia is a 5-term member of parliament. To say that he's an overachiever is actually understating reality. Mr. Scindia is a huge achiever. He's been educated at Harvard, where he did his bachelor's degree. He has a master's in business administration from the Graduate School of Business at Stanford University. And he's just 50 years old. He's one of our youngest and most dynamic cabinet ministers. At this age, he's already been in public life for about 20 years. He has been Minister for Telecommunications, Minister for Posts and Information Technology. He has been Minister for Commerce and Industry, and he has been Minister for Power with independent charge. So he's held various government positions already at the senior most levels of India's government. And we are indeed privileged as airlines. We are privileged that he is our Minister for Civil Aviation. I think it would be fair to say that with his breadth of experience, his education, and his personality, he is a future Prime Minister of India. What is also interesting is that Mr. Scindia is an avid cricket buff. Many of you in the United States may not know this game, but this is almost a religion in our country. And Mr. Scindia has served in various capacities in the Board of Cricket Control of India and remains a wonderful, great fan of the game. So I think great privilege for me to introduce him today. You'll see much, much more of him, all of you. And I think what he's doing in civil aviation is absolutely trailblazing. He has brought all his investment banking sensibilities to his job. Mr. Scindia has worked at Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch as an investment banker. And we face his investment banking mind all the time when we present to him. And he tells us what poor presentations we make and how we should do better. And, it's indeed a privilege to work with him. He's really trying to transform the civil aviation sector. Many of the changes which we have been working on for the last 15 or 20 years, some of those changes are actually starting to take shape. So we are delighted for him to be our minister. He's also working very hard on the drone policy, on the larger ecosystem of aviation. And he's doing this in a very consultative manner with a host of committees from the private sector advising him. And I think it's wonderful that he should be with you. And I'm delighted today to introduce him and present him to you and to the United States and to the entire USISPF community and its board. So with that, I will now turn this over to my fellow board member, Raj Subramanian, the CEO of Fedex, to take this discussion forward.
Well, good morning and good evening to everybody. We had some technical issues, so I apologize for that. We will be moving with Senate Majority Schumer session in the next 20 minutes. So please stay on. He will be coming on time, and we will have a conversation with the Chairman John Chambers and U.S. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this next session of the USISPF Annual Summit. Please welcome the Chairman of the USISPF Board of Directors, Mr. John Chambers.
Thank you very much, and I want to welcome everybody to the event. I apologize for some of the technical issues we faced earlier. This next session is one that I believe in very strongly. It's a pleasure to introduce one of the best leaders in all of America, somebody that I've watched over the last several decades grasp the impact that technology would have on this country and the world, and similar to Prime Minister Modi, understood the impact of a digital India and a strategic partnership between the U.S. and India and what it could be. The majority leader has been amazing in terms of his support of this partnership and for all Indian Americans in terms of our citizens throughout the world. So, Senate Majority Leader, thank you very much for joining us today. We're deeply honored, and let me turn it over to you, sir.
John, and let me first thank you for that nice introduction and your great leadership in so many different ways here in this country and in the globe for so long. And I really want to thank all the distinguished speakers who went before me this morning. Thank you all for your leadership, your vision, and for driving these important conversations about how we can strengthen the ties between India and the United States. And of course, thanks to everyone at USISPF for your incredible work. You've done a great job building bridges between the world's two largest democracies. Your organization is an indiscernible force for good, and it unites the business community, the nonprofit sector, and our two governments at a time when cooperation is essential. And most of all, for everyone tuning in from New York, I'm glad to be with all of you. I love New York's Indian American community. We have more South Asians, I believe, than any other metropolitan area. And the more South Asians, the more Indian Americans there are in New York, the better New York is. New York quite would not be the same without the Indian Americans who call our city, our state, and our metropolitan area home. And as you know, of course, New York is home to the largest community of Indian Americans in the country, and it's one of the reasons New York is growing and getting stronger. And I want to begin this morning by talking about how their experience, this experience of Indian Americans, directly influences and enriches our state. I firmly believe if you want to understand both the challenge and promise of the American dream in our time, look no further than the Indian American community here in New York. It's not just because the Indian American community has produced so many leaders in business and academia and technology and medicine and entertainment and politics, though that's true. It's not just that the Indian community has brought so many rich, diverse, vibrant customs from their homeland to our city. That's also true. It's because the Indian American community embodies what the American dream has always been about, of coming to the country, working hard, and when you work hard, you help yourselves, you build a better life for your children, but you also enrich New York and our country. And if any of you ever come to visit New York, you can see this in yourselves, whether it's strolling through Jackson Heights in Queens, or getting a dosa or a spicy vindaloo on Curry Hill, or attending the Diwali festival, or visiting the many vibrant temples, mosques, and Sikh community centers. Our city is defined by a very fundamental way by the Indian American experience. And we know too that discrimination against Indian Americans, against Asian Americans is not defeated. It all too often raises its ugly head against our sisters and brothers in South Asian and Asian communities. And that's why I was so proud to stand arm in arm with the Indian American community and so many others, and I made sure as majority leader to pass the anti-Asian hate crimes bill this year in the Congress. But no matter how you slice it, hate and discrimination are un-American. Bigotry against one is bigotry against all. We must and will confront it at every turn. But we've made a great deal of progress. This year, more Indian Americans are running for local office in New York than at any point in our history. I've spent time with many of these wonderful and talented people, from Kevin Thomas on Long Island to Jennifer Rajkumar and Shekhar Krishnan and Felicia Singh in Queens. On one hand, this is fantastic news and a hopeful sign of a more inclusive future in our city. But to date, New York still has not elected an Indian American to federal office. So this year's record number of candidates is a reminder of how much work we have to do. So in short, New York's so much better off because of our Indian American community. I've loved this community. I help this community. We have such a great, strong relationship. It's like this. And I've been proud to stand with the Indian American community my entire career in office because of the qualities that I've mentioned. And by the same token, America is a whole lot better off because of the long, strong, and crucial friendship between India and the United States. And that's what I want to talk about now. As we begin the third decade of the 21st century, as our two countries continue to fight against COVID, and as the world around us undergoes rapid transformation, India and the United States must continue working together to strengthen and maintain our partnership. As Majority Leader of the United States Senate, and I'm the first from New York ever, I will use my clout to make sure that America and India stay close together, that we create new opportunities in this century to prosper together, and that Indian Americans are given the full benefits of life in America free of discrimination. How can we accomplish this? Well, let me mention a few ways. First, we must continue cooperating to strengthen the economic ties that bind our two countries together. This means Congress must find opportunities to invest in the industries critical to both our countries, from biotech and semiconductors and information technology. These are good-paying jobs that strengthen both economies. But we also must work to break new grounds on the technologies that will shape life in the 21st century, from AI to cybersecurity, from 5G to other telecom technologies. Our rivals around the world are hard at work investing in these technologies, and they don't always have the values of democracy and self-rule that the US and India do. We need to beat them to the punch. For that reason, I'm proud to say that a few months ago, the Senate passed bipartisan legislation that I put together and helped pass through the Senate that would make historic investments in these technologies, and at the same time using those investments to bring our two countries closer together. That's so important. Now, as we work to strengthen our economic bonds, we also have to work together on our common defense. At a time when the forces of authoritarianism are making inroads across the world, it's vital that India and the US, the two large, prosperous, growing democracies, keep working together to stand up and proudly defend the right of all people to freedom and to equality. For decades, the United States and India have supported one another in the shared battle against terrorism. India, you were there for us in the US and New York when we were attacked on 9/11, and we likewise stood by our Indian allies when they were struck by the tragedy in Mumbai. By working together, we were able to bring the people who caused these terrible attacks to justice. Today, we face new and different challenges in the Indo-Pacific, challenges that implicate our two countries' security and the future of the global economy. Our shared experience has taught us the vital importance of constant vigilance and international cooperation, and the necessity continues today, especially in Southeast Asia. So I'm going to find ways for Congress to continue promoting our two countries' mutual defense, including working with the ASEAN and Quad members. Finally, I'll always fight to make sure we open the doors of opportunities for immigrants from India to come to the United States. My middle name is Ellis for Ellis Island. I believe in immigration so strongly, and I've long been a champion in the United States for comprehensive immigration reform. I'm committed as ever. And as I said, the more Indians that come to America, the better America is. The more Indians that come to New York, the better New York is. And that means I'm going to continue to forge policies that ensure a rational and steady stream of legal immigration, as well as our student visas, so people can study in America and enhance our universities and eventually our businesses, our nonprofits, and our neighborhoods. So friends, my dear Indian American friends, and my Indian friends as well, in closing, let me just say that there's probably never been a more important moment for the relationship between India and the United States than there is right now. If we hold true to our common values, if we create opportunities for economic growth, and if we provide for our common defense, I believe the next generation can truly enjoy a world of prosperity built on the strength of the two largest democracies on earth. I promise I will do all I can to achieve that noble goal. Thank you very much for the great work you do and for your time today.
For the kind remarks, especially towards Indian Americans. We support you as you keep on driving the infrastructure agenda and other aspect of the leadership from your side. I also want to say thank you on behalf of John and the board for what you're doing between India and the US and your commitment towards immigration, commitment towards Indian Americans who are trying to succeed in the state of New York and city of New York and rest of United States. We would like to host you sometime in the near future in India to basically enhance this relationship as we move forward. Once again, thank you for taking the valuable time.
And let me just say, one of my goals is to have a CODEL that goes to India, and I want to have that happen as soon as we can.
We'd love to do that, Senator. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wish you well. Thank you.
It is a pleasure to be interacting with you again. I would like to welcome all of our participants. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone who's joining us for this discussion with the Honorable Minister. You know, as I said, India has shown tremendous resilience in navigating through the uncertainties of the pandemic. It has taken giant in attracting foreign investments and has seen an unprecedented growth in FDI inflow during the pandemic. And with signs of the strong economic recovery, India is seen to be one of the most attractive destinations by US companies. And Minister Goyal has been a proponent of Prime Minister Modi's 5I mantra: intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and we have the privilege today from the Minister on pandemic and next towards a $5 trillion 2020. So I welcome you all again. Without further ado, Minister Goyal, opening remarks. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. John Chambers, Chairman Emeritus of Cisco and the founder and CEO of JC2 Ventures, and my very good friend, Mr. George Oliver, Chairman and CEO of Johnson Controls, Dr. Mukesh Aghi, who I think I can call a brother, President and CEO of USISPF, Mr. Virat Bhatia, somebody who's done some wonderful work in India, bringing Apple to India in a big way, and very proud of the good work he has done. Mr. Prabjit Singh, it was wonderful to hear about some of the good stuff that Uber has been doing in India. Congratulations to you. All the other distinguished members of the board of directors, public policy executives, and government officials. It's always a privilege to interact with all of you. I always come out of a session with the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum wiser and more educated about what's happening in the world, more particularly in the United States of America. So I do believe that we are at that moment where if we do not seize the opportunity, future generations will hold us responsible for not getting these two democracies together, working and partnering with each other to scale and ensuring the well-being not only of our people, of the people of the US and India, but furthering the global well-being of the people across the world. And towards that, I think the US and India are absolutely natural allies. No two economies, no two sets of people can have the kind of synergy, kind of brotherhood, the understanding of each other, and also the respect for rule of law, democratic traditions, concerns for the lesser privileged, interest to engage with technology, innovation, promote entrepreneurship, like the US and India do. Our leaders over the years have built very strong bonds of friendship. Our businesses work seamlessly with each other. Our people enjoy each other's company, each other's country, companionship, and business relationship. And therefore, I believe that a big responsibility is cast on all of you in the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, as is cast on me as a representative of India, to work together to build this relation to the next level in the spirit of understanding, in the spirit of oneness. And I assure you that the government in India, led by Prime Minister Modi, is extremely committed to this relationship, is focused on transforming the lives of the people of India, for which we believe we have to reform, we have to perform, and we have to transform India. All the steps that the government has been taking over the last few years are structural in nature, preparing the nation for engaging with the world from a position of strength as an equal, but also bearing in mind our own limitations, our own socio-political economic situation, and the imperatives of improving the lives of 1.3 billion Indians. India is an aspirational country, young country. Our youngsters are well skilled, well educated, very entrepreneurial in their approach. I think 66, 67 unicorns already in India, most of them, or at least half of them, during the COVID pandemic period. They are engaging with the rest of the world, offering services, learning and taking knowledge from all of you. I'm sure that with the collective efforts of this wonderful team in front of me, Friends of India, and the commitment of the Modi government to the India-US relationship, we have good times ahead of us. Let us work together to further the cause of the India-US partnership, both strategic and economic, and let us smoothen the edges. Let us work together in that spirit of understanding that I know all of you have, that I know Mr. Chambers has always articulated in all our conversations. Mukesh has always been an ambassador of India. Virat, Prabjit, all of you are serving India. Thank you for all your support, all the good work you're doing. And my doors are always open to you, to the entire team, for anything that I can do to further your work, your business, your presence in India, further our relations between the two countries. Thank you, Mr. Oliver, for your leadership of the USISPF. and I would look forward to welcoming you in India soon and meeting with you personally. My best wishes to all the people, all the participants of this forum today, of this dialogue, and I pray and wish for your good health and for the happiness of you and your families. Thank you very much.
Terrific. And Minister Goyal, thank you for your remarks. We share your enthusiasm about our partnership and working together to ultimately achieve your goals. So we're looking forward to a very engaging discussion. I know there's been a lot of questions brought forward, so if we could, we'd like to really just get into the Q&A. If I could start, making India a significant step toward creating a self-reliant India envisioned by Mr. Modi. It is evident in his recent UN address as well. You have articulated the vision of the global manufacturing hub as companies look to relocate supply chains from other parts of Asia to India. What specific advantages can India offer? And if you would talk about latest developments here.
Scott, I'm getting very sporadic voice. So I'm getting broken sentences.
Turn it down a little bit. Can you hear me now?
I could hear Prabjeet very well, Mukesh very well, but something is wrong on this connection.
Let me start again. Making India is a step towards creating a self-reliant vision by Prime Minister Modi. It's evident in his recent UN General Assembly address as well. You have articulated the vision of making India the global manufacturing hub. As companies look to relocate supply chains from other parts of Asia to India, what specific advantage can India offer? And if you would talk about any latest development.
Friends, COVID-19 has highlighted that supply chains should not be based only on one factor, maybe cost, but also on trust. As I said earlier, India has a democracy, demography, young population, demographic dividend, as we often call it, a huge demand, 1.3 billion Indians aspiring for a better quality of life, and huge diversity. Our geography also gives us a unique advantage of connectivity to Europe, the Middle East, Africa, or Eastern Asia. We are very centrally located. To build resilience in the economy, the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, announced the Atmanirbhar Bharat program. The Atmanirbhar Bharat program is not at all about closing India's doors to the world or engagement with the world. It's about opening our door bigger and wider. There's lots we have to offer, lots we have to learn, absorb, and bring in from developed countries, like-minded countries, on a fair and reciprocal and equitable basis. Therefore, we believe Atmanirbhar Bharat rests on 5 I's: intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and innovation. And you will see that we both, in a way, share these 5 I's. We need to be more focused on strengthening specific areas of cooperation between the US and India. We in India are trying to address concerns of sectors where we believe we have a competitive or a comparative advantage to make in India for the world. And many initiatives have been taken towards that end. Reducing the corporate tax rate for new investments to 15%, opening up FDI in several new sectors, the national infrastructure pipeline, the monetization of assets plan, nearly $100 billion assets sought to be monetized, removing retrospective taxation and legacy we inherited, and something all of you have always advised us to get rid of, the simplified tax regime we are trying to implement, the one nation, one tax, the huge technological innovations we are introducing in the country, our fintech and edtech are really two pillars on which we are developing very well. All in all, the effort is to make India produce high quality products at competitive prices, meeting global standards, and truly in areas where we have the strength or the competitiveness, becoming a larger player in global markets. May not happen in all businesses, but we certainly believe there's a lot of potential in several sectors. Single window, I'm grateful for the acknowledgement on that. It's still on a beta version, a test case. Take us a few more months, but I assure you, we'll make sure that sitting in Minnesota, you can locate, identify the land you want to buy it, pay for it, know all your neighbors, know all your logistics, ensure all your approvals are in place before you even set foot on Indian shore. We've improved our rankings in the ease of doing business, but of course, that's got into an unfortunate spin. But overall, competitiveness, global innovation index, in all of that, we are making effort to meet the needs of the world. Thank you.
Aligned with those priorities, and certainly I think all of the companies that have joined us here today certainly look forward to continuing to work with you on those priorities. Another question was, our members are actively considering expanding their India-based operations, but they are concerned with the non-tariff barriers. You've also been a proponent of making in India for the world. So how can we further streamline India's approach to existing global standards? Is there room to help India align with global practices to ultimately minimize the requirements in India?
By the way, Scott, thank you. I could hear this very well. Thank you very much. George, we've been working on quality control standards for quite some time now. And we're trying to align them to international standards in most cases. Our effort is that we should have a participative and consultative approach with industry stakeholders. But at the same time, my personal belief is that unless India engages with quality production, we'll never be able to become a global player. Sadly, and I don't mind acknowledging it, in the past, the culture was that this is a product for the Indian market, and there'll be another product that the same product for export was a different, slightly more high quality product, and we would write on that export quality. I think Paramjit or Mukesh should remember that, export quality. I want to change that. There will be one quality, what we'll sell in India, what we'll sell to the world. And that quality consciousness will only come once we introduce standards in the country. But I assure you, I'm making every effort to align them to international standards. As of December 2020, I have figures to show that 83% of Indian standards were for various products were completely harmonized to internationally accepted standards. And we are working towards converting the rest of them also. But if there are any specific cases that any US businesses have, just shoot a letter directly to me or to any of my colleagues. We have an open mind, and fortunately, now the standards body is also under me. The BIS, the Bureau of Indian Standards, is also under me. Probably the first time that both these departments are under the same minister. So we have a great opportunity to resolve these issues literally on a real-time basis. Though I must say, We also face a lot of non-tariff barriers when we go out to export to the US, to Europe. So these are non-tariff barriers are there in all countries. But we can't change your standards because we can't meet those standards. And likewise, obviously, we will expect American businesses to meet Indian standards. But I assure you, we will try to align more and more with the rest of the world, and we'll work as partners with an open mind.
Yeah, I think a lot of the companies that are with us here today bring a lot of depth and expertise and can be a real partner in how those standards are set. And we look forward to continuing to work with you on that. Moving to the next, what's the next frontier, for a follow-on trade agreement with the U.S. And is there a potential, in your opinion, to pursue economic arrangements under the Quad?
Well, the US-India relations have come a long way. And as I said, we are pretty much natural and indispensable partners, and we need to work together. Unfortunately, a lot of effort which had gone in my first 2 years, 1.5 years, and Mukesh, Mr. Chambers are all familiar with the amount of work we did. I think members from your company also, George, were involved in the discussions. We had actually concluded discussions maybe 3 or 4 times, but would always get stuck somewhere in the red tape. And for a change, India was not responsible. We were always forthcoming. I would personally invest a lot of my time in trying to make it happen, including meeting with your medical devices companies on probably 4 or 5 occasions, both in India and in Washington and New York. So I made a very, very sincere effort. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I hope that now with the closeness that the Quad has created between our 4 countries, since I already have an FTA with Japan, I'm fast progressing towards a comprehensive economic partnership with Australia. In fact, their trade and investment minister is here tomorrow morning. And we are having our next round of discussions tomorrow, and we hope to conclude very quickly our early harvest agreement, in which we have identified the few issues, maybe 100, 200 product lines, some services, some investment areas, which are of pressing interest to both countries. And we are entering into an early harvest agreement, because an FTA which has 11,000 lines will take much longer. We'll pursue that and finish it over the next few months. But we are going for the early harvest so that businesses can start enjoying the fruits of this partnership. We are doing that with Australia. So now it's left to the US and India to engage in a much bigger way. I would urge all of you to also impress upon your administration. India is ready and willing to expand our economic partnership in the spirit of reciprocity and equality, which I think is something which we will not find each other wanting. While our trade in goods and services has seen significant growth in the last 10 years, but I do believe the potential hasn't even started. I think India and the US can be 2 countries which should be looking at a balanced mutual trade of upward of $1 trillion in the next 10 years. And unless we keep some very ambitious targets, we'll never get there. I'm happy to look at $1 trillion target for the next 10 years between the US and India. I'm happy to engage with the US and look for expanding our economic partnership so that then all 4 members of the Quad would have very strong economic ties with each other.
Minister Goyal, I think we agree with that, and we think that there's a tremendous potential between the two companies, and we're glad to hear that and what we can do to make sure that we're doing what we can do to continue to advance those. Now, moving on, how will India compete for trade in the region when there are large-scale trade agreements in place between many regional countries, such as RCEP and CPTPP? And is there a fear of being left out?
Not at all, Mr. George Oliver, not at all. In fact, the RCEP, we engaged with them with all sincerity for almost 7 or 8 years. I became Commerce Minister only in May of 2019. And I was left with only 3 or 4 months before the final round of discussions were to culminate in an announcement of RCEP on 4th of November. But probably Mukesh would bear me out that I'm very much used to getting into very micro details when it comes to these subjects. And when I started digging into the entire discussion, dialogue, and the agreement that was sought to be finalized, I realized that India was being shortchanged. I also realized that we would have been put to a tremendous disadvantage vis-a-vis some country, and we would have also, in effect, killed India's manufacturing sector. More so because when you deal with honest and transparent economic systems, it's much easier to work. But if you are working with an opaque system on the other end, it's very difficult to understand what could go wrong. And therefore, we had to bite the bullet and take the decision of not signing the RCEP agreement. However, we already have an ASEAN-India free trade agreement. The 10 Southeast Asian countries are covered. With Japan and Korea, we have an FTA. Australia, as I said, before the end of the year or by January or February, we would have a framework FTA with the early harvest in place to be implemented over the next, maybe by May or June. So in effect, we've recently signed an FTA with Mauritius. We have our SAFTA neighborhood in which we have trading arrangements. So in some sense, we are well set, we are there, and we do believe that where there are equal and reciprocal, honest trading systems, we will be there, we will be a partner with those countries, expand our relations. As we speak, I have launched negotiations with the UAE on 22nd of this month, 1 week ago. We are already in dialogue with UK at an advanced stage. Hopefully in November, we'll be launching the formal negotiations for a comprehensive and enhanced trade partnership, though we have started the informal preparations already, and my secretary has just come back this morning after the latest round of discussions with the UK. EU and India have decided to start discussions on a CEPA. So India is working with like-minded countries, democracies, transparent and rule-based economies. And therefore, I feel we'll neither be left out, but will actually be at an advantageous position also for American companies to come and work in India.
So we thank you for that, Minister Goyal. You know, we have a couple minutes here, so I'll finish off to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of progressive India and its glorious history. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry is organizing special events. Could you throw some light on the Industrial Corridor Program and the launch of the new Industrial Park Rating System?
George, we are celebrating 75 years of independence. We call it Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the sweet nectar of 75 years of independence. And we just celebrated a Commerce Week last week. We had about 700 programs all over India. We are trying to build the momentum right down to the lowest level, right down to the districts, and engage with them to say export is not a central government subject. It's something that every business at the smallest level, small tier 4, tier 5 city also, town, has to be engaged in commerce. And we've had some very good success showcasing India as a rising economic power and our capabilities, and build confidence in our businesses to engage with the world. We'll soon be coming up with a national master plan on infrastructure. It's called Gati Shakti. The idea is that the national map, all our industrial corridors, industrial areas, agriculture producing areas, mining areas, We're trying to bring all of them on one framework and ensure proper logistics and connectivity across the country in a transparent manner and plan our future infrastructure development around this framework. Thank you.
Minister Goyal, that's terrific. And I do realize it is late in the evening for you. And as always, we greatly appreciate the candor in your discussions with the U.S.-India Strategic Partners Forum. And on behalf of all of the board of directors, sponsors, and members of the U.S.-India Strategic Partners Forum, I want to thank you for your valuable time and for sharing important insights with our members. You know, as India celebrates 75 years of leadership and incredible achievements, Ministry of Commerce and Industry under Minister Goyal's efforts have reduced more than 22,000 compliance requirements, and several penal provisions and offenses have been decriminalized. Initiatives that will surely drive further opportunity, partnership, and ultimately growth. And after witnessing a downfall in 2020, U.S.-India bilateral trade has really started to show signs of recovery. We look forward to finalization of a trade deal to further lend momentum in building a stronger economic partnership between the two countries. And I want to thank you and for everyone that's joined us here this evening for your time this evening. And I hope you all have enjoyed this conversation with Minister Goyal. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you very much, George. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you, Minister Goyal, for your transparency and kind words. You know, you are the hardest working minister I come across. I've sat down with him middle of the night, and he's still working. And his understanding of US is tremendous. And I know how much energy he put in trying to get the trade deal. And all the time, the goalpost got moved. But we're hopeful as we move forward, we'll have some kind of a formal relationship on an economic side. So once again, thank you. And we look forward to the next session with you, with the board on a closed door area. Thank you once again.